welcome. Over the Top Podcast. It's your boy HD. I'm here along with RJ. How you doing, Ron?
Hey, I'm doing excellent. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Q, how you doing over there, Q?
I'm doing great.
Well, great. Playmaker G, what's going on your way?
Just maintaining.
Okay. And last but definitely not least, Lady Toya, how you doing, young lady?
I'm good.
As always, let everybody know where they can find you.
Let me tell y'all something. That ass Toya been popping for real. You can find me on AskToya74@gmail.com or Toya L on TikTok or Toya Mitchell on Facebook. That's TOIA. That's where you can find me.
Dorny on it.
Not popping these stats.
Okay, what's up with the stats, Q?
I mean, this quarterback wants $45 million.
Who is that, Daniel Jones?
He wants $45 million stats.
Oh, well, I don't know. Well, that's Daniel Jones, ladies and gentlemen, with the New York G-Men. We'll talk a little more about that on our sports podcast. But we are over the top podcast where we look at different views and different situations and give our take on them. It is the last show in Black History Month, and one thing we do want to take a pause and just celebrate our Black women's achievement, the queen of the planet, the beginning of all. So we got a couple of clips we want to show. Run, cue those up in celebration of our Black women. Okay.
Give me 1 second.
No problem. The first one you see, Meg, we always talk about Meg Thee Stallion and her sexual exploitation, but this is her getting her degree in nursing at HBCU. So the next generation is just not out there playing around. They are putting in a little work and getting it done. What do you think about that, Toya? What's your thoughts?
I think it's awesome. I think she does her thing. She also made sure that was one thing that she's always talked about, that she was going to finish that degree. Especially, I think it was for her grandmother. So she made sure she did it. She got it done. And she got it done while touring and doing videos and all types of stuff, shows and things like that, but she still got it done. So that shows you, no matter what you do, you can still focus on your education too.
You're right. And guys, this is a tribute that I want to send our one of Black history pioneers of Sister Maya, or Dr. Maya Angelou, and her and one of her famous speeches. So just stay tuned and enjoy. A happy Black History Month to all our sisters and ladies and mothers and daughters and
power to the people.
Power to the people.
You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Just because I walk as if I have oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my sassiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just because I laugh, as if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words, you can cut me with your lies, you can kill me with your hatefulness, but just like life, all right. Does my sexiness offend you? Oh. Does it come as a surprise that I dance as if I have diamonds at the meeting of my thigh? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling and bearing in the town. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak miraculously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And so, there I go.
Ron, what's your thoughts about that? That speech, that message. What's your thought? You reflect on the black women that affected your life. What's your thoughts on that?
Resiliency. The ability to endure innumerable hardships and be able to overcome them and continue to give birth to a new nation. So that in and of itself is really powerful. Extremely powerful.
I'm gonna go with you, G. What's your response?
So the thing that really stood out every time I hear that is, as the black woman went through the struggles, they were still very beautiful and they were still queens. And I thought that was excellent how she articulated that even though she was rising, she still remained classy and beautiful.
Quentin, I know how your mother's dear to you. What's your thoughts on, what kind of impact have not just your mother but other black women has played in role in your success so far? What's your thoughts?
Well, I'll probably get in more detail later on in the podcast. I'll say now, I have seen and grown up around what a black woman is supposed to be, and not what a lot of them try to be now. A lot of them try to be what Meg Thee Stallion says in their songs, but not do what Meg Thee Stallion did, and that's get a nursing degree and walk across campus, walk across the stage.
Okay. We'll finish up with you, Tori, with this one question, then we're gonna shift on. Has black women, has black ladies today, or young women today, are they still what is something positive that you can give to the young black women today to not to live up to, but to maintain the brilliance of our female ancestors? What kind of advice, and as you wrap this part up, would you give to our young sisters out there now?
I would probably say, like you said, follow the ancestors. Always know with the ancestors where you come from. Know your history, because your history is always going to tell you a story. And I guess that too kind of deals with what we'll talk about later on. And positive energy always elevates. So keep that peace, keep that energy, protect it, and you can do anything you want to do. We are magic. Stay magical.
Thank you. We love you, black women. We definitely love you, black women, Over the Top podcast. I just want to get that little brief setting to celebrate you guys. Switching gears a little bit, one of the topics we'll talk about tonight again is affirmative action, and that affirmative action is in trouble again with the Supreme Court. Just as of last of October 2022, the court's heard arguments that's in the case of Harvard University and at North Carolina University, stating of the Students of Fairness Admission Act. And what it does is aim to disallow colleges from taking race into consideration of submission to the school, not submission, excuse me, admission, pardon me, excuse me about that. But some believe that that affirmative action is still needed to actually give minorities a leg up on the opportunities that they wouldn't have before, and I think the program been around for a while. But now I think now is up to the end of its journey through the Supreme Court. Not to rush the conversation, but there's been back and forth for years in our community of affirmative action. But I'm gonna start with you, Gary. Do you think affirmative action is still needed in our schools or in the workplace right now?
So my answer to that is yes. And one of the things you said is give a leg up. And I just want to correct that. I don't think affirmative action gives people a leg up. It is trying to level the playing field. In doing some research, there are already 9 states that have already removed the race from the admission part of the program. And if you look at those studies, you have seen that the minority demographic has been reduced every year significantly since that time that they have removed it from the books. And I think one of the things that we have to also keep in mind is that even though they're talking about it at the federal level, some states have already taken action, and that's why our local elections are so important. So to answer your question, yes, I do think it's needed, not to give minorities a leg up, but to level the playing field.
Q, you can respond if you like, but similar to the same question as far as, okay, not just leveling the playing field. But you're a college student on the college campus. Do you think that race should be considered as or affirmative action should be considered in admissions for college students?
Yes, I do. One thing, the world is pushing towards being more diverse. And being more diverse means you're still gonna have to take race into consideration, especially moving forward. We're gonna have a lot of schools that are mixed, of all different types of races. So you do have to take into consideration. However, I do also say that should not be the end all be all. That probably shouldn't be why you get into college, because there are some people who will take advantage of because there's a certain race to get into college and then don't do anything with it. So you should consider it, but don't make it the main reason.
Well, RJ, what about the people say, you know what, you had your opportunity. We have passed affirmative action. You have the same opportunities that we have. We don't need such programs for you to get in school. Other components would say, well, why don't you go to another school? What are the components that's saying that the affirmative action is not needed? And I think that do you think we're in a better place with these programs? I know we have kind of asked the same question across the board, but I want to get a different view. Is these programs really still needed, or is it something that are we using it as a crutch, or is it something that we can dispel and go forward? I'm just trying to get a different take on it. What's the argument of saying that it's not needed and you can still get the things you've done without it? What do you say to that?
I had this debate with one of my friends the other day. He was talking about the situation with Eric Bieniemy, and when we were having this conversation, I told him, I said, I want you to think about one thing that's infinitely clear. The need for affirmative action is directly related to the inability for people to see that the divide is not between black and white. The divide is between rich and poor. The economic component of it is the construct by which they pass that thought and they empower people. And I'm gonna hit a couple of components, and I hope you give me a time to kind of flush this out. And the Lord give me clarity and let me push this thing out.
Take your time, Pastor. What they do in church? Take your time, preacher. Take your time. The
1619 Project was a project in which they talked about aspects of racism, and effectively, when they set up the construct of slavery here in this country, black and white folks were equally enslaved. And slavery was extremely harsh. So black and white folks banded together and rebelled. So essentially with that rebellion, what they created was the construct of the identification of being white. Mm-hmm. So what is really interesting is that most people who identify as Jewish, I heard a stat the other day, most people, well, let me back up. People in Europe identify as Czechoslovakian, as Italian, as Grecian, as English, whatever country, Russian. If they're in Asia, they identify whatever country they're from. They do not identify as being white. But the construct of racism was created because America is business. And the business of racism or ism is the function of what is the instrument that keeps our skin color to be our sin, so to speak. So if you identify that as the identifying factor for us versus any other group is our skin color. And in order for democracy to work in some aspects, in order for the free market economy to work, you have to have a permanent underclass. And that's essentially what they've assigned us to be. And so I go back to this line. I didn't see it. It was in Mississippi Burning. Gene Hackman says in the line, I quote, "If you're not better than the N-word, you're not better than anybody, son." And what Gene Hackman told the gentleman who he was talking to in the scene, my dad didn't know that hate was essentially killing him. And that's what has essentially happened to America. America, like it eats its babies, is turning inward on it and eating itself. Marjorie Taylor, and I'm gonna say one thing, and I'm pretty much done. Marjorie Taylor Greene were talking about succession, and Joy Reid had a great piece where they said if the red states succeeded from the Union, they would essentially be, I think, the fourth or fifth economy, and they wouldn't be able to fund themselves without the blue states.
Right, I heard that.
And that was, I sent you that clip, and that was interesting. So it amazes me that at their own risk, they will cut their nose off to spite their face. So to really rib it back in, it's not about color. It's about economics and the ability to consistently input data that supports that upper class, that construct, and you have gatekeepers like Clarence Thomas who facilitate that.
You got the last word on it, Toya. Put a button on it.
I'm gonna go with what Ron said. So when we talk about the 1619 project, we talk about the boxes that we check, like he said, the boxes that we check. So those boxes were created because when the masters were raping their slaves and having babies, at that time, and we talk about money then, we talk about money, those babies, because they were the masters, could take that land. Although that they're mulatto, quadroon, nocturne, whatever, that one drop. But, of course, you didn't want that to happen. So these boxes were created. So whenever we fill out applications, whenever we fill out anything, when we fill out anything in America, there's always a box to check. Are you Hispanic, non-Hispanic, white, Black, whatever? So those boxes were put there because the slave master had to know who was who on that plantation and who could take that land when they needed it. And they didn't want any of us to have that land. So those boxes were checked. And so now this is where we have this affirmative action. This is a lot tonight. So it's as we go into colleges, and like G said, 9 states have already got rid of affirmative action in their colleges and universities. The statistics do show that diversity in those schools within that state are not the same anymore. because you can no longer say that those people, like Ron was saying, from those lower income areas can be in those schools, because of course we're still checking those boxes of what we are. I suggest everybody check other, because let me tell you something, I check other, because literally if we are here, we are other. We're so mixed up. We're so mixed up, we don't know what we are. So like, I play with my mother because my mother is my grandmother used to tell me she wasn't black, and so as a child, and you grew up in Jersey, you like, all right, so my grandmother Puerto Rican, because you know okay, my grandmother's Indian and white. I never thought like that. I just looked at her and the shade of her skin, because there were 4 kids. She could pass. She was 2 of the kids that could pass for white, and 2 of her siblings couldn't. And so I would always tell my mom, when you fill out something, you put other because you all mixed up. Now I'm like, we really need to put other. Because when you put other, they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
If you're going to get rid of affirmative action, that's not leveling the playing field. Like I said, it was to level the playing field. You're taking away our level. You're already taking away a whole bunch when it comes to education right now. So it's going to trickle up into the workforce. And that's going to make it harder for young African Americans to get jobs. And so it like I said, trickle up. So it's going to go up from college into the workforce. Because I think have they dismissed it out of the workforce already? Or is it still, affirmative action is still in the workforce? But as they're taking it away from colleges and giving those, and on another note, HBCUs should stop giving minority scholarships to white people. If they're gonna take them away from us, let's stop giving it to them. It's so easy for a white person to graduate from an HBCU because they get minority scholarships automatically. Let's take that away from them. Let them pay for their schooling like we do. I'm just saying.
Hank, your mic is out.
Your mic is out.
Okay, hold on. Since he's muted, I do have a rebuttal with that. Taking away scholarships, HBCUs taking away scholarships from Caucasians the same way they're doing us, does not make that any better than the people who are trying to keep us under. We should, instead of trying to get even, be better than them.
Baby, we've been better than them all our lives. It's not. Yes, I'm not saying trying to get even, but we are always. I'm tired. I understand what you're saying, but we always forgive. We have a forgiving spirit. We have always turned the other cheek. We have. Where is the warrior people at? Where we're gonna talk about Jesus and all that other stuff. I'm the Jesus of Nazareth. The tribe of Nazareth was a tribe of warriors cutting off heads. That's what I am. We are tired of forgiving and being better. We will always be better. We built this country. You can't go through your day without having something that you do from the time you turn on the lights.
I can't hear anything now, guys.
We can hear you now.
We can hear you.
We can hear you now.
Why isn't that continue?
Keep the debate going. Go ahead.
But what I'm saying is, I'm not saying let's one up. I'm just saying, if you're going to constantly take something away from us, where we have the opportunity to take something away from it, and even taking those little scholarships away doesn't mean that they still won't be able to pay for college. They are born 5 times ready than we are. We start off in the back. If you've ever seen that video where they have the all the people on the start line and then they ask the questions to go, we still standing in the back while they're like 40 feet ahead. That's just like gentrification. It is 20 years planned in advance, and we don't know why, because most of us don't read. So you want to keep something from a Negro, put it in the book, because a lot of Negroes don't read. So when we seen all these new structures coming up in the communities, and you see white people walking dogs and Starbucks going up, that was planned 20 years prior. We will never be on the same level until we get it together. And at one time we were on the same level when we were segregated. where a $20 bill didn't leave our community over 40 times until it left. And that's why they needed integration, because they needed our dollars. Like Ron said, that money was needed. And so some good white person came and whispered in some good Negroes ear and said, oh, y'all need equal this and equal that. Well, we already had our own doctors, lawyers, businesses, grocery stores, gardens, farmers, agricultural things, but they took it away. They burnt down Black Wall Street, Rosewood, the Brooklyn in New York.
You know what though, Tori? I will say this. I never. The issue more than anything else is that it was a number of different factors. You know, there's the internal factor of like those things. But I remember my mother-in-law saying something, because she was a part of the reverse migration, and she moved to New York. She just said, man, one, the lifestyle that they lived in and of itself was very harsh. Two, aspects of things that they endured relative to dealing with Jim Crow and the racism led them fleeing for a better existence. And the one thing that they have done successfully for all people, not just Black folks, for all people, is disconnected us from the land. And the inability for us to farm, because what the natural yield of God is that God is a multiplier, right? Anything that you get that has a natural seed and it can be grown and multiply itself. Essentially, when we're going to the store, we're going to buy seedless watermelons or fruits that are GMO, and aspects of those things that are effectively happening create the larger issue that we're dealing with. And our larger issue is the fact that, man, there's a war going on between rich and poor. And we have to assess the fact of what is taking place and be aware. And that awareness will change the dynamics that exist. And Brother Martin Luther King, he hit it right on the head. He said, man, when I come to DC, I'm coming to get my check. And that in and of itself was a uniting factor between the people in the Appalachians as well as the brothers and sisters throughout the South.
Ron, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, you're loud and clear.
Okay, I'll get my door part. I thank you guys. Thank you guys for keeping that conversation brewing. I do appreciate that. To finish up with Black Edition.
I want to stand on something on top of what I said.
Okay,
I just want to get 2 quick points out and then we can move on. Sorry about that. I wanted to kind of talk about one of your questions about having our own. And I don't have anything against having our own, but the thing that I do say is if we're paying taxes, if our tax dollars are going to certain universities, then we should have the ability to apply and get into those universities. If they were say, hey, we're not going to take your tax dollars to support these schools, then I think the schools can make that kind of decision of who they want to let in. But as long as they're taking our tax dollars, I find it hard to accept that. And then the other thing I wanted to kind of throw out that is a lot of times when we talk about affirmative action, we just focus on the race piece, but there's other components that are also a part of affirmative action. You have the discrimination against age. So you have people who are older who may not get certain jobs because they're too old, or vice versa, too young. And then also it was updated years ago to include women. So if you start attacking affirmative action, and you may just start with race, but if you start eliminating all of those other minority groups, then you find yourself going way back to where we were years and years ago. So that's the thing. Just 2 things I wanted to point out is if we're paying money, we should have the opportunity to go, and that affirmative action encompass more than just race. It's a lot of other things.
Q, you got anything else when they had the conversation?
Yeah, I will say, going back, even if we all go back to segregation, which I'm completely against, not for reasons I'm opposite, but I am against that. I will say, if we go back to how we were black people hiring other black people, all that. Or before I say, everyone here wants an HBCU, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I went to a predominantly white Juke.
And I went to grad school at I went to Wake Forest.
I went to a Juke.
So,
Yeah, I went to a junior college though, but yeah, go ahead.
So essentially, at a HBCU, and I'm even at one now, we all know, even the people who own the HBCU, the black people who own HBCU, they've proven that now a lot of them really can't handle just a school with like, hold up. Okay. A lot of them, they can't even like run a school like even properly. Like they promise people things that they don't fulfill themselves on. They still hang back with their times and not moving forward at times. You can't see the room that I'm in now because I got this picture up here. But this is not a modernized dorm room that I'm in, or even a building that I'm in. So I don't even know where all the money that the school says they bring in goes to, but I know where it's not going to. So what's to say that even if we go back to that era, that even if we want to get corrupt black officials in charge either.
Well, now I'm gonna put back on you, son, but sir, PQ, I mean call your son Quentin, because if blacks want to, if the black culture wanted to go into a certain area and develop their own ecosystem and land and economic system and banking system and health system, we've already done that plenty of time with Black Wall Street. We have the ability to build our own communities and run and be self-sufficient in our own communities. I think that's one thing but I do understand the fact a lot of people don't want to go back. Right, and there's corruption everywhere. There's corruption in every race. It's not just black. I know a lot of people don't want to be necessarily separated, but I think we have to kind of glue it together a little bit better than what we're doing and work with our own communities. We'll get out of some of the conditions we're in. But anyway, keep our head on the swivel. Anybody else? I mean, we don't want to beat it too far. But
that's a deeper conversation he just opened. Because I'm gonna say this, man. Going to a predominantly white junior college and being in that environment is a different environment, and I'm gonna tell you why. The school is cash flush. Economically, they're funded. Going to a HBCU, we weren't. In some aspects, things of that nature, the stuff that we had in Maryland at a junior college for football teams and products and processes was daggone near comparable to what a Division II school had here in North Carolina. And so when I reflect on that opportunity in that time, man, heck, we had 2-3 practice fields. We had two full practice fields so you could separate. And once the Salem State, we had the down and the bottom. Essentially, it was one field. So when you start talking about the economics of certain things, and then essentially the best and the brightest amongst us are always plucked out, i.e. our athletes, and taken and put into these environments and essentially used to support and uplift these schools and these universities. Yet and still, when you take that, it's like an economic suck, because if you think about it from the perspective of like a Buck Buchanan, of some of the greater athletes like a Mel Blount. Mel Blount is a Hall of Famer, but they never made any money during that time. But if he takes some of that money and gives it back to, I think it's Grambling or Southern, then that school is enriched by the fact that he has made that type of money. Go ahead, Q.
It'll probably be a while to find out how much money Deion Sanders made Jackson State. But according to him, any of the money that he made for that school didn't even go back to athletics. So he brought eyes and money to that school. And we talked about this a while ago. How that school shafted him. That school really shafted him because he had to do a lot of work.
But it's a state school. It's a difference when you're at a private HBCU and a state school. The state is giving, like Winston State is a state school. It's a UNC system. Jackson State is a Mississippi State school system. So the monies that is allocated for that school is usually what they can take on top of donations and things like that. but it's not a Howard or a Morehouse or a Spelman. Those are private schools. So if he had coached, let's just say, at one of the private schools and he brought in all this money, then that it would show. You would see it. But with state schools, the system is different. It's how the system is different.
It was laid out. It was laid out so you that they basically they essentially like allegedly diverted funds, because you can see the numbers.
All these schools diverting funds. Jesus.
Yeah, but that's the problem, and that's funding and financing. I think the issue, and I understand what Q's saying, is at the core of what we're dealing with a group of people who are part of what we consider to be the talented 10th, the elite folks, and they make there's two spirits in the world: the spirit of truth or the spirit of error. And a lot of these people operate in the spirit of error. They do things that they know are wrong, and he's right that they need to be taken to task for it. I'm not going to dispute it. But I'm going to say this, the maladaptive treatment that we receive at some of these universities, because I can tell you at a Division II school, some of the Division II state-funded schools, I've been to some in Pennsylvania. I've been to a couple in division schools at various different universities, man. Those schools and those facilities, which were predominantly white institutions, had great resources. Their cafeterias and entities that are part of that school was off the meat rack. I mean, like Winston-Salem State is just getting to where Kutztown was in 1990. So you're talking about, it was like a 20-year evolution, and the states knew that we needed to fund it. They just wouldn't necessarily give it to us. And some of that, and I'm gonna hit it like this.
One more, you finish over. I'm gonna get 2 more minutes. Then we're gonna wrap.
Big Joel Davis used to always talk about not wanting that bell tower to be built on our campus. And what did they essentially do as soon as Joel left?
Build that bell tower.
They built that bell tower.
Well, they made it a clock tower.
And with clock tower. Then when they built the clock tower, then they started going through the process of, well, they were building a new union too, but then they started building additional buildings, and then the money was released. So the radical component of what the students were at that time was kind of salted away, along with some of the professors retired.
Right. Q, last word. Give them a minute. Last wrap it up, sir.
Oh, I had some last words, but they're not words I can say while I'm recording, because there's stuff I've heard that I don't think I should say.
Okay.
Okay.
No, so we're gonna leave. What you said?
I would say if it's alleged, then you can't necessarily substantiate it.
Right. But we gonna switch gears. What you say, Brian?
I'm not gonna say it, at least while that says record up there.
Good job, you.
Well, it is like the last subject matter, guys, for our Black History Month. And what a Black History Month we had. We had the guests on. We had a good time this month. And it was about what is Black culture. And when the question was posed to me, I had to think about it. And it actually came up, and I actually thought about this clip about our Black culture, about where is Black culture, and kind of where we at. Run, see, can we see this clip right quick? And I'll come back.
1 second.
I had a conversation with a friend one day. He was talking about family and life. I asked him, how do you see your kids' future? And he said to me, my grandfather walked 10 miles to work every day. My father walked 5. I'm driving a Cadillac. My son is in a Mercedes. He said my grandson will be in a Ferrari. He said my great-grandson will walk it again. So I asked him, I said, well, why is that? said to me, tough times create strong men. Strong men create easy times. Easy times create weak men. Weak men create tough times. He said to me, many will not understand, but you have to raise boys. That's what Coach instilled in me. There's so many like me. The strength and courage of a warrior.
So what I gather from that and why I thought about that, because if we look at slavery, Jim Crow was over late 70s. Hard times, we struggled. The 70s, 80s, we started seeing a little leeway. So we started driving Cadillacs instead of walking Cadillac rap, because everybody had a Cadillac. During this times, I think the culture of family and sense of giving money to the community, we don't have the attitude that we made it. And once we get the attitude that we made it, we find ourselves with these laws of trying to not teach race theory in schools or Black history in schools. We still find police brutality. So I think that we're headed in the right direction, but I think we done got too comfortable. And we're not careful. We gonna go back and we gonna rescind back to what we to the slave, or not the slave, but to the laws that oppress us. If we don't really take our time right now, this time, a moment in time, to really look at ourselves, not just the Gucci bags, not just the money, but what are we doing for our communities? What are we doing for our children? How are we raising our children? We talk about HBCUs. My whole thought is we need to start getting our hands on our children in daycare. So we won't have the situation in the daycare system where the white kids getting fed and the Black kids watching the media. We don't have those situations where, you got teachers showing black face to our kids. You don't have the situation where we demasculating our men because we're too comfortable. We got to go back to these. We have to go back to the basics. What do you think, Tori? That's my thought.
When we talk about the culture, it's so funny because PBS has a special going on when the hip hop culture, the 50-year anniversary of hip hop, and how it affected our communities. So it started out in the beginning, but as you watch it, it's going through where hip hop started, the reason why it started, what was going on. The Bronx was burning, and it just goes through the time. So when Reagan became president, you had Jimmy Carter president, you had Reagan president, and then you had, Ed Koch as the mayor of New York, and when the first thing happened in Howard Beach. So for us, and as I was watching it, I was saying, wow, this is our culture. This is how, like you said, when we were raised, we came up after Jim Crow. So our generation is that generation who had a lot of things given to them. It was a lot easier for us. So at this age now, some of us are complacent, whereas our kids are doing the fighting like our parents were doing. So it kind of skipped us, where we did have to fight. It just wasn't on social media as much. We talked about what happened in California with Rodney King, and then the shooting of the young girl by the Asian woman, and how over time and time again, until this day, from slavery, people always get off for doing things to us. But we still created this beautiful culture that everybody wants to be about, be like. It's like they love our rhythm, but they can't handle our soul. And so they emulate us. They hate us so much they want to be just like us. That's what is amazing to me. Our culture is everything. This word, America, even though we're not originally from here, but we built this country and we've given it its soul. We, from music to Dr. Maya Angelou, to writings, to great artists, poets, every type of anything. As the young people are listening to hip hop now, and not understanding that within our hip hop, there's jazz, there's bebop, there's classical, there's African, there's Cuban, there's everything from all different aspects that our culture has created, that Black people have created. And I think it's just a beautiful thing. And if we realize how beautiful it was, we would probably fight for it a little bit.
You, RJ, what is there the Black culture in your mind?
I feel like he's been under attack for a while. Culturally speaking, when you think about the aspects of integration and collective economics, have diffused the power of a mighty sleeping giant. I think where we are right now as a group of people in our culture is that we're processing more of the fact that we're a defeated people, and we're not defeated. And I think what I would ask us to do is to really think more about like ways to conform and find ways to collectively come together, use our economies to support each other in business and finance, and work on developing networks and groups of people that are think tanks, but at the same time create things within inside of the community that become instruments that uplift us and not tear us down. I think a good portion of that is us not understanding the power of media and entertainment to influence us. This new word influencer is pretty interesting, because an influencer is a person that has more likes, more likes than anything else. And some of them don't have a whole lot of business experience or knowledge to go along with it, but they know how to create content. So I just would ask us to really kind of be sensitive about our culture, be prideful about our culture, be aware of the impact that the things that we do have on each other.
Q.
If I may, could you circle around everyone else and then get the younger opinion at the end?
Well, there's only one more left that's playmaker, but I'll be more than happy to appease you, young gentleman. G.
So to me, Black culture is a collection of our experiences and our challenges as well as our triumphs. And I think that our culture right now is changing. I don't think it's the same as it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. And I think as culture change, I think we will adapt, because we've always had to adapt and make changes to whatever crisis we were facing at that point in time. So yes, I don't think it's a mountain is where we're climbing consistently going to the top. I think it is more of a wave, and right now we're just going through some of those different waves. And as we need to address issues, the community, our culture will figure our way out of whatever crisis we need to deal with.
Nice.
Back to you, Q.
All right, I'm about to get on my soapbox for a little bit.
I don't need to put a time limit on you, sir. Go ahead. Go ahead.
First off, as far as what culture we do have, I don't even think it's African culture anymore. I think it's specifically African American culture. We pretty much lost African culture when the slaves got over here. So now we have African American culture. And African American culture, it still has soul food. However, soul food is slowly leaving with the souls of our parents, because a lot of people now don't know how to cook because the souls are leaving with the recipes. But the recipe's gone, we're gonna lose that food. All the macaroni and cheese, the chicken, ham, all that's gonna be lost to time because we're not. My generation, a lot of people in my generation and younger, aren't taking the time to learn those family recipes that would that was passed down from the slaves to now. They get lost to time. Another thing that's deep in African American culture now is homophobia. Toria mentioned hip hop a while ago. That's a low hanging fruit there. That's not, don't even need to spend too much detail on that. But a lot of women in our culture, I'll be on record saying this, a lot of women in our culture are some of the most homophobic people on the planet. If a woman in our culture goes up to a man in our culture and says, "Hey, I like you, I want to do X, Y, and Z with you," and that black man, who has every right to say no, says no, a lot of their first thoughts are, "Oh, well, you must be gay." If a black man shows any emotion, or actually becomes more comfortable with themselves, "Oh, now you're getting sassy." There's a video I saw a while ago where a man was walking down the street with a microphone, asking our women, our African women around my age, what would you rather find? Either your man cheating or your man being bisexual. A lot of them would rather their man be an unloyal cheater than a bisexual man who still loves them. That's actually kind of crazy. Like, he still loves you. Guess what? If he's bisexual, guess what? That means he's chose you over the other team. But he chose you over the other team. But you're gonna break up with him because of that, even though he's still dating you. You should feel even more honored because he has both teams, but he chose you. She said, "Oh yeah, I'm on."
Hold up, Toy.
I got a box. I will stand on my box. So
Okay,
for me,
hold on.
we as African, my generation starts a lot of trends.
You have, sir.
Yes.
TikTok, we dance. A lot of the dances that you may see on TikTok that goes around the black girls, a lot of black teenage girls started those dances. But we don't claim them in time. We don't say, "Hey, this is mine." We don't put an LLC on it. And then when the uncultured come in and say, "Oh, we like that word," the word "woke" was started by the black people, the culture, and now it's being used against us by the uncultured who doesn't know what the word is or where it originated from in the first place.
Now hold up a second, Q. Now we're not, and I don't think none of us here to try to jump on you. But you gave us a lot of a lot of food to you gave us a lot of food to chew on.
I'm not done.
So I know.
He's not done.
Hold on, Quinn. I'm gonna come back to you. Let me.
My question.
Okay, there was a question, but give me a minute. Let me do a round robin right quick. Let us get everybody up. Let's get everybody up. You ran away. Go ahead, G. Quickly, G. Go ahead, G.
I'll be very quick. I agree with what Quentin says. I'm just going to say it a little bit different. He talked about the soul food. I do agree that we are not learning from our history, from our ancestors, from our parents. So we're missing some of that stuff. He used soul food and recipes and stuff like that. I'm using it as more of a knowledge transfer from our people our age to our kids or people who had different experience to pass on to us. So I agree, we're not learning from our mistakes of the past, and so we kind of repeat a lot of those things like over and over. So I agree with to an extent of what Quentin was saying as far as the soul food and the knowledge, not making it from one generation to another. And then the other thing I would say that when he was talking about the homophobic and all of that stuff, I do think that there is an attack on not just Black culture, but I think there's an attack where everybody is trying to share or to push along their agenda, and we're kind of getting mixed up in everybody else's agenda and kind of falling apart, falling away from our true thoughts of what our culture is. But so I agree with some of the things that Quentin said.
Victoria.
I agree too, but what I say, when it comes to millennials and Generation Z, there's going to be a big difference. I think we're going to see a difference because those Generation Zs, a lot of them are like me and G and Ron, late in life babies. So they raised by older people. And what I noticed about them and what the sister was saying last weekend, they are highly intelligent and they have old souls and they are going to be world changers. And I teach my girls cook. So they haven't lost that ancestry. I think the problem with the millennials is that we had to work. Like work. Like we're latchkey kids. So we came up without our parents being home all the time, but we still learned how to cook and do all that stuff. Now the thing about the bisexual men and being okay, so maybe that, you know, with your age group, Q, I it might be different, but with my age group, when we come up in the AIDS epidemic, and there was a lot of undercover brothers not saying that they were gay. Now everybody now is out in the open. So when you think of it as how old people think, things still exist in this world. And we think it's just all gone away and that it doesn't exist. But if you're saying that you're bi, then if the girl knows that the guy is bi, then she has the opportunity to say, okay, I don't want to be with somebody like that, or I can handle it. I'm gonna tell you right now, I can't handle it. But for my age group, it's because of that thought pattern of those men that were undercover and passing AIDS and killing women over and over again because they just didn't want to come out of the closet and not say anything about it. Now your age, y'all got pronouns and adverbs and adjectives and all that. What's the baby's name? That's all I want. Like, because I hear this on a daily basis. Zoe will be like, well, him, her. What's the child's name? Well, I don't.
Give me a name. Go ahead,
I'm confused, but I get what you're saying, and I agree with some of the things you're saying. But that button, you know, I don't agree with that.
Go ahead, Q.
I will say, now I'll get back to my list, but I will say, as far as that goes, considering how long we as Black people have been the minority and wanted our names taken. A lot of our names were just taken away. Who's slamming doors like that? A lot of our names were taken from us. So now, so we should understand as far as that goes. When we say, okay, now I want to be known as this now, I feel like maybe not y'all, because like it's hard to rewire, learn things. I've come to terms with that. It's hard to rewire things, but that's why my generation and younger is getting more. You're gonna see more of that because my generation younger is more understanding. We seen how some of y'all people, how some of the older generations acted, and we're looking at it like, you understand, but that doesn't seem like you're treating them. We see how y'all treat people in their community, and some equate it to, wait, y'all were saying how slave masters were taking names, R-wording the women, castrating the men, and saying, oh, well, y'all talk about that and talk about this. And, okay, so we learned this of everybody. So that's kind of where that is. We tell them in terms of, hey, what do you want to be called? Okay, no, I'll call you whatever you want.
Okay.
Back on my soapbox.
Hold on. Quickly, RJ. Heard on your soapbox, but quickly, RJ. Give me that.
Greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that he didn't exist.
Trap facts. That's fact.
So if I don't identify myself as your enemy, and I slowly but surely roll back the clock on you, then I've essentially reset the laws through legislation and manifestation. And what I tell people all the time, and I think this is one of the things that I really have a problem with. I have a problem with somebody being gay, because if you're gay, that's who you are. What I have a problem with is the pushing of the agenda. And it's identified and it attacks and it goes directly towards us. And when I see that, again, what I said about the lynchings and I said about Umar Johnson, and I had this conversation with Hank, they lynched Japanese, they lynched Italians, they lynched Jewish people. But when they lynch black folks, they always cut off a lot of times they cut off their manhood. Why did they cut off their manhood? Black genetic potential annihilation. And I think that's one of the things that we have to really kind of come to grips with. I'm not sitting here saying that these people hate us, all folks hold it, because they all don't. But they're not all identified and for us. And one of the things that I love is the sister, Jane Goodall. I wish we could have posted that clip, but it was an interesting part of that clip that when she talks about racism, and she says, would any of you want for yourselves the treatment that black folks have to endure?
And the room was quiet.
And the room was completely quiet. So essentially, if you're quiet and you stand by when injustice is being done, then you're just as good or you're just as much a part of that injustice. And that's just period, point blank. And people can sit here and they can mask it and say we love everybody. They want us to say the kumbaya thing. Like I said, I'm not at war with white folks. I go into white folks' house every night and they love like the KKK, the Klan. They be talking about the old ways and all that other stuff. But you know what? When I come in there, I come of me and I come with the heart to help them. And I come with agape. You understand what I'm saying? And I reach those kids and they love on me and they daggone appreciate me when I'm gone. But it's about the fact that, man, I'm a firm believer that love conquers. I truly do believe that love conquers all. Mm-hmm. I just think that we internally have to really realize that we have to see the mindset as the enemy and not necessarily the color. And they can't see the mindset being the enemy. They just want to permeate what makes them superior. Nobody ever wants to feel inferior. Nobody. And essentially what you're dealing with as a group of people, and one of the things that I'm gonna test one of the things that you said, just because you as a human being may not want to act on a sexual impulse that somebody propositions you, it makes you smart. That makes you smart. If you choose not to operate and jump out there in that particular situation, that makes you smart. Now, I can't say that I've always been that smart. It's a beautiful thing to do that.
Give you 2 minutes to finish up. 2 minutes to finish up, Sir Joe. I know you got to you boy in the finish.
I got one quick thing to say before I hop back on. I just happened to see it on Twitter earlier today. Someone on Twitter earlier said, they said, media's pushing the gay agenda. They're pushing this. They're making our children X, Y, and Z. But when they weren't doing that, back when y'all were growing up, and they weren't doing that, people were still growing up gay or liking people of the same sex. So that kind of debunks almost all of that, because you were still growing up gay while only seeing straight heterosexual people.
Well, I guess you missed the point. They're not saying that people was never gay. Well, the point we're trying to make is you don't want to push on you. But growing up, it wasn't pushed on you. Growing up, it wasn't thrown in your face. Growing up, if you was, and when everybody didn't talk about it, kept it pushing. But just right now, the way they indoctrinated that maybe, and they're not to be homophobic or not homophobic. They're just, I don't want you pushing certain things on my child. And that's what's going on.
There's certain things. There's certain things I see on shows that's gay and straight in kids shows. Not just on that gay side.
Right. But back in the day, our cartoons didn't have that. Right.
Yes, they did. It did, but we didn't pay attention. First of all, oh my God. Bugs Bunny was a transvestite. Stop playing. Ernie was always gay.
But he was a funny. But okay, I understand.
Playmaker was like, "Yo, where's she going? This one off the rim."
For us, like Quinn said, for us, it wasn't out in the open like that. It was more hidden. And for our parents and our parents' parents, because you had aunties that lived together that you thought were aunties, and then when you grew up, you realized that they weren't aunties, or they weren't brothers or cousins or uncles or stuff like that. They weren't just roommates, but it wasn't what your dad, what Hank is trying to say is like, it wasn't put in our face. It was that what happens in our house stays in our house type of situation. It ain't nobody's business what my brother do with his spare time out in these streets with these men, or my sister do with them other women. That, I mean, like Kendrick Lamar said in one of his songs.
But
like,
I would say this: you can't teach kids in preschool and elementary school aspects of those titles because it's not fair. It's not fair to them.
What about the kids that are growing up
taking those classes? Someone
I-
taking those classes to be a teacher. They're not teaching us to teach that at all.
I'm not saying you're being taught to teach that, but I've seen clips where they're showing educators actively educating kids in settings, and they're teaching these young impressionable minds those things. I know I was taught sex ed 4th, 5th grade. I think 4th, 5th grade. Fourth, 5th grade is right around the time where you can probably introduce some of those concepts and those skills that'll really help people. But when some of these things are like preschool, 1st grade, they teaching things like binary, non-binary, pronouns, aspects of things like that. I mean, if a kid asks a question, then you explain it. But it's hard for a child to wrap their mind around it, man. You know, that's just different. I don't know. And one thing that's really wild about like looking at like a dude like Jeezy who came from the street. He said he wanted to raise his child not necessarily binary, but without any kind of sexual identified titles.
As to not be overly sexual. I think that was the purpose of that, because African American children and Hispanic children are the highest to be overly sexualized from the age of 5. Of course, for us.
And younger. I've seen there's some wild videos on Facebook and younger, and it's weird.
And younger. And so, like you said, when I see those little babies on Twitter, because I am somewhat conservative, I am conservative in certain ways. I'm realizing that in my old age. I don't think it's appropriate for little girls to be pop locking and rocking it and rolling their eyes and talking to their parents any type of way and cuss words and all that other stuff. I don't think that's appropriate at all. But I get what you're saying, Ron. My thing was, what about those kids that come to school and they have 2 dads or 2 moms? And then those are the questions that are being asked in those pre-K and those kindergarten classes. Why is both his parents the same sex and things like that? I don't think that non-binary and things like that should be taught in pre-K.
What do you think, G?
I'm getting confused by this conversation, so I know the kids would definitely be confused. I mean, it's a lot to take in, and I am 30 plus, so I can only imagine, you know, if a kid has a mommy and daddy, and his friend has 2 daddies, and you know, he tries to figure it out. But I think that's when the parents should have the opportunity to explain it the way that they feel is the best way to explain it. I think when you take that power out of the parent's hand, or even go against what the parent may want to even teach or instill, you just create a negative environment. But I'm taking it all in right now.
It's a lot to understand, and to tie it all into the culture, because these are what our kids are dealing with nowadays. It's a lot to have to understand and have to explain. Bad enough you have to explain regular stuff about what's happening.
I would say in the same frame, why you shouldn't be teaching preschoolers, kindergarten, 1st graders that either. Why should they need to know about that yet?
That
either?
part.
See, and that's the part. That's and I think we all kind of hitting on I think we're hitting on the same horse right now. I think you know exposure is good, but you don't want to expose your children earlier than you're ready to explain these situations to your children. I think that's more important more than anything else. You got one more last word, Queen, that we're gonna go around and hear. One more last word.
To get back, I'll cliff notes. My last two and get to the main one.
Well, let's get to the main one so we can wrap it up. We're trying to get
real quick. A lot of people in our culture play the victim. They'll blame everybody for something that they could have changed. A lot of people in our culture are prejudiced. They won't say they're racist, but there's a lot of things that Black people will say that if another race said it, we get them up out of here with the quickness. But we're not racist. We're prejudiced. And
we can't be racist. That part. We can't be racist. Yeah, I wish people would know the definition of a racist. Black people can't be racist. We can be bigoted. We can be prejudiced, but we cannot be racist.
Women not told you, because I think I got somebody online that may dispute that. And we're gonna whatever. Geez, playmakers. What do you? I mean, since we out here now, guys.
I got one more, and I'm done, by the way.
Oh, sorry, Quinn. One more thing.
No. I got one more to wrap it up in the book.
Right, you wrap yours up because we done took another turn here, sir.
Okay, so what I was gonna say is, out of everything I said, everything I've said above, everything we said over the past, this has been about 30-minute conversation. Change is still happening. Everything I've said above is slowly changing for the better. Homophobia is becoming a little bit less. More people are learning how to cook. Their social media, a lot of people are learning to claim what they make. So other people don't say anything. So other people don't take it. We're being less prejudiced. We're taking more accountability. The Republicans are trying to say, hey, there's a lot of young people went out and voted last time. Where'd all these young people came from? They saw what y'all were doing and they didn't agree with it. Change is coming, and everything above I said is true. But yeah, change is still happening throughout as time goes on. As generations keep coming on, change is coming for the better. And the evil and the bad is slowly exiting stage left.
I'm glad you ended positive because I was worried about you for a while. So you were going down a dark path though, man. I was so
I'm my dad's
in a tunnel. But we're gonna get a playmaker. Get back in here, buddy. I know we're a little alone tonight, guys, but we gonna doctor it up so it can turn out right. I know he's a master in editing, so we're gonna get this thing right. But we gotta get this. We gotta address it. We gotta address the elephant in the room. There's a playmaker. Come on, address the elephant in the room, playmaker.
So because of time, I'll be brief. But
no, we can cut it. Go get it.
Speak your mind. Speak your truth.
Speak your mind. We can adjust. Hey,
wait, before you start, how many people in this group think that Black people can be racist?
I'm the host. I'm a hold my opinion to the end.
But we do know the definition of it, right?
I know the
definition of racism.
I know the definition.
Okay, go ahead.
Some people in our culture say some wild stuff about some other cultures.
That's bigotry. That's bigotry. Go ahead.
And the reason I'm picking on, we're gonna pick on the plan, man, because we had like a 3-hour conversation about the same subject. So I kind of want to get him on record. Come on, man. Speak your mind.
Well, I will say that every person has some type of bias, and that's all it is. You may be biased toward a group of people based off of their age, their race, their whatever, but everybody has some kind of bias. And to say that you don't have any bias whatsoever, I believe is incorrect. And that was the basis of my argument.
Okay, but all right, so I'm gonna say this. Racism is described as a condition in society which a dominant racial group benefits from the oppression of another race. So, since we are a minority, we are not the dominant race. If you want to break it down like that, like you said, we all have bias. I don't like black. I don't like Negroes. Some Negroes either. So yes, we all have bias. I like some white people. and I like some Asian people, but yeah, we all have bias. But as far as the word racist, and I'm just talking about the word and the meaning behind the word, because we are the minority.
Power. We never had power.
That's right. A racist has power to oppress another person.
We shouldn't say never. You know, we shouldn't say never, because at one point in time, you know, we were in some aspects of things, God had a different order, and when that different order took place, we benefited from it, and now, because of sin and falling into a different mindset, we are in a different set, and the time in which we're born, we're just tasked with being that way. But I broke this down to one of my friends. Oh, Haywood Cloud, I'm gonna give him a shout out. Cloud. Ism is what we have to deal with. Ism is a system of circumstances and situations that are created. Racist or racism is the practice of a set of rules that sets apart one group of people from another. So as a Black person, where can you set apart a person, or where do you have spaces where you can set apart a group of people, i.e. they come into and you can have an inordinate amount of power and control over them? Go ahead.
Okay. Q, go ahead, wrap it up.
I would say all the Asians, no matter which type of country from Asia they come from, when they come over here and open up a nail salon or a Chinese restaurant, and we say all types of stuff about them while getting our feet done from them or getting our hands from them. While some people, there's videos of them talking about them while they're working on them. There is a certain level of power that we as a culture think we have over them. That is seen.
You still giving them your money, Q?
In certain words.
You still giving them your money. You paying them for a service. So
we are indeed. But how they speak about them, especially like in front of them, thinking they can't understand them.
They do the same thing.
That's something to be worried about in the future. Because I said before that some Black people play victim. A lot of them feel entitled for sometimes no reason, but they feel like, oh well, they think they have the power now.
But that's a bias. That's a bigotry. That's not racism. That's a bias. Like G said, we all have bias. We all have bias. But even still, when you talk about Asians, at some point we still lower than them. In the eyes of the true racists, of the colonizers. I'm gonna say that.
Okay, Toya, one word for the culture. Power word for the culture. One word. One word. That's right. One word.
For the culture, power.
Gary, you had something you want to say. You can say what you had to say. You give me one word for the culture.
Well, let me say this and then I give my word, because I heard the definition of racism. I agree with the definition of racism, but I don't agree with to say that we as Black people in certain situations don't have power. It's hard for me to say that we are powerless in every situation. So it's hard for me to say that, to accept that. I mean, we may not have power across the nation, but in different pockets, we do have power, in which we are, in those cases, the majority, and we are, in that case, by definition, could be racist toward a certain group. So, but
you just don't make it what it is.
Hold on. I don't want to hear nobody fuss at me when this thing gets 3 hours long, because I'm trying to shut it down. Every time I shut it down, y'all gonna peel the scale back open. Okay.
I'm gonna say this, Gary.
The loyalists who love conversations like this, but watch all of it.
I think, but you know what? Can I say two? I want to say two things.
Go ahead.
One of the people that I found one of the things I found really intriguing I lived in a neighborhood where there was a Chinese store. And well, we called it a Chinese store. I don't know the ethnicity, but it was a kid in the store that, man, me and him we used to laugh all the time. We used to geek out and laugh all the time, man. We spent a lot of money in that store. And I never forget, economically, it was a brother who had started the store. And he had started the store right next to them and he wanted to compete. But he didn't have a lot of the things that they had in their store. And so he said, man, hey, man, why don't you come in here and shop with us? That's one of the things that I really remember as a kid that I really feel bad about. Because economically, I didn't understand the principle of it. But years later, I went into the store. The son had started working in the store more consistently in the summertime. And when I went in there looking for him, because I had formed a relationship with him and we would laugh and we would crack jokes and everything, he was gone. And it hit me. They sent that kid to school with the money that we was paying into his family store. And a black man, I didn't give him my money, which would have probably came back into my community.
Right.
I learned that at like 16, 17, 18. And so when you identify something like that, that's a deeper revelation of a thing. And there's a reason why they come in and set up stores and shops and they get loans. I'll never forget. Last thing I'm gonna say in terms of this, this lady on some random stuff. I was going to work at UPS, came up to me and sat next to me on the bus stop. And we started talking. She struck up a conversation and she was funny as hell. And she was saying some pretty like racially charged things, but she was saying a lot of the names that I look at on these loan applications, it'll be 10 people on the loan applications to get some of these businesses, and they would give them no money. He said, man, ain't no way in hell they should be in a situation where they'd be able to get this money, but there were loan applications with all these names on it that were of Oriental descent. And those same loans they wouldn't give to African Americans. That was a profound thing that I'm hearing from a lady in my 20s, sitting in the third richest county in the nation. She's shooting it at me straight. You understand what I'm saying? That's a heck of a conversation when I think about it, because it was funny, but it was educational. So she was like, when we go to the banks or when black folks come to the banks and they look at their applications for those same businesses, they're not even really economically considered.
Because their name ain't Dawn. Because their name ain't Dawn.
Their name ain't Dawn. All right, guys. Anybody else have anything before we wrap it up? Anybody? Great. Yes, sir.
One thing as far as what Ron said, I understand I could have gave that money to the black family and send their child to school. But you also gotta consider the positive is you still gave a family money that was probably struggling, maybe just as bad, new country, don't know anybody, maybe not speak the language. You gave them money to send their child to school too. That's still, you gave a blessing to somebody, and that's always a positive.
Man, you need to be a preacher. You got a good heart.
He don't.
You love.
He did a good job.
Yeah, God knows.
Describe the culture. I got 2 words, and that's black excellence.
What? Give me a word to describe the culture, Ron. One word.
Infinite. There's no beginning nor end.
There's a playmaker.
I like what Toya said. I go with power.
I'm gonna go with confidence. I think a lot of times we in this, and I'm gonna wrap it up with this one, guys. I think because we've been stereotyped to be less than, because we've been stereotyped to think that we can achieve more, because we've been put in the glass bubble or the glass ceiling, that it crushed our confidence. We as black culture we have the swagger, but I don't know if we really have the confidence to really achieve the levels and the heights that we really need to get to. But that's my thought. I think confidence would get you out of the. We can play the part of the stereotype, but we can't own the company because we don't have the confidence to do the paper to own the company. We don't want to put the work in. It's easy for us to dance and play sports and be athletic, but do we have the confidence enough to step outside of the norm and say, you know what? I don't need nobody else to show me. I can go do it myself. So I think confidence is gonna be the key. Wow, guys, what a awesome show and what a way to end Black History Month. Again, you can find all our information on Over the Top Podcast Facebook page. We're beginning to get merchandising going on and shirts and stuff going on. We're just doing a lot of awesome things out there. And again, guys, may your next move be the game changer. Good night.